Hi there, welcome to this tutorial on how to be a successful student. I'm Bernard and the topics that I'll be covering are setting SMART goals, critical thinking and using feedback to feed forward.
Hi, it's Day, and I'll be covering schedules, being prepared for lectures, and reflection. Right, let's get started. An important part of being a student is scheduling. Planning and scheduling can be overwhelming, but it provides necessary structure which contributes towards having a successful year. Knowing what is coming up and when is really important. So it's worth creating both a weekly and a yearly schedule, which includes dates and locations for your lecture. This can be done in the weekly planner. Then, dates and times for each of your deadlines. I recommend putting this in a yearly planner so that you can make a plan for particularly busy times. Lastly, include the days that you work so that you can spot any clashes and amend them. I recommend doing this on both the yearly and the weekly schedule. In your weekly planner, it might be worth including independent study time so that you are able to hold yourself accountable for reading both for the lectures and your assignments. This is an example of a yearly calendar. I particularly like them because you can see the whole year mapped out so that when you have additional things that you need to book in, you know exactly when you are free. The next step to being a successful student is being prepared for lectures. Being prepared for lectures is an essential part of being a successful student. Being prepared will not only empower you to contribute, but also help you avoid feeling lost and overwhelmed while in your lectures. There are several ways that you can prepare. Firstly, check your university emails regularly, as lectures might notify you about any last-minute changes. Secondly, read the relevant book chapters or articles from the reading list in advance. Thirdly, decide how you will take notes in lectures and prepare the relevant materials. For example, take enough pens and paper or charge your laptop. And lastly, take water with you and locate the closest bathrooms in advance. This is so you don't have to leave if you get thirsty or leave for too long if you need the bathroom.
So we now move on to setting SMART goals. SMART goals are one of the most important things you can do in university and life generally. SMART goals provide motivation and direction, especially during days you may feel like giving up. So SMART goals are broken down into 5 steps. The first one is being specific. So what do you want to accomplish? Followed by being measurable. How can you measure this progress and know that you have successfully met your goal? Followed by being achievable. So do you have the skills required to achieve the goal? And is the amount of effort required on par with the goal that you want to achieve? Fourth one is being relevant. So why exactly are you setting this goal right now? Is it aligned with the overall objectives of the purpose of you being in university? And finally, time bound. What's the deadline and is it realistic? So it's not so much about being general about setting goals. It's about being specific, being measurable, making sure it's achievable, relevant, and time bound. And that's how you set SMART goals.
Reflection will really help in your steps to becoming a successful student. Learning comes about not from doing, but from thinking about what we do. Reflection, therefore, is a very important part of your learning process. Reflection can include acknowledging reactions, feelings, observations, and ideas about things that you have experienced. Gibbs says, "It is not sufficient simply to have an experience in order to learn. Without reflecting upon this experience, it may quickly be forgotten." Gibbs went on to create a reflective cycle that many people use to help them while reflecting. Many people find that they learn best from experience. However, if they do not reflect on the experience and if they do not consciously think about how they could do better next time, it's hard for them to learn anything at all. This is where Gibbs' reflective cycle is useful. You can use it to help make sense of situations so that you can understand what you did well and what you could do better in the future. Gibbs' reflective cycle starts with description. So what happened? You then think about your feelings. What were you thinking and what were you feeling? You evaluate it, what was good and what was bad about the experience. You then analyse it. So what sense can you make of the situation? You make a conclusion. What else could you have done? And then you end reflection with an action plan. If that same situation happened again, what would you do?
We now move on to critical thinking. Critical thinking is a skill that you will need and you will continually develop throughout your time here. But there are key barriers involved. Misunderstanding what critical thinking is all about, the lack of methods, strategies and practice, in other words, how to critically analyze or read or write, and even the reluctance to critique experts. But there are also solutions to these barriers, such as realizing that experts have their own biases, being objective, and identifying the positive and negative of information you're reading. So being fair, weighing up the differences, the pros and the cons. And finally, paying attention to details. So slowing down and actually reading what's in front of you and asking questions, not overlooking key things and going deeper than just face value information. So we now move on to our final tip, which is using feedback to feed forward. Feed forward is simply thinking about how you might use feedback to improve on your future work. And this is underlined by 5 key principles. The first one being adopting a growth mindset and not a fixed mindset to the feedback you actually receive. So seeing it as a learning opportunity and a time to develop for your following assignment. Once that's done, we move on to identifying strengths and areas of development in your feedback. So spotting the key strengths that you have developed from the feedback given to you by the marker. And once that's done, seeing what the areas of development are in the feedback from the marker. Once that's done, we can also make use of the assessment criteria. So checking back with the criteria that was given to you before as a way to see how the markers mark their work. So you are kind of speaking the same language. And then we now move on to then asking clarification for markers on parts of the feedback that you may not understand. Because there may be areas there that even then you may not be sure of or what it means. So that's when it will be a perfect opportunity to speak to the marker themselves to get that clarification so you can understand better and then feed in for your next assessment. If the markers are not available, then you can also speak to an academic mentor. And finally, in light of those 4 principles, we come to the final one, which is setting SMART goals in light of the feedback given. So then thinking back about how we can make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
So that comes to the end of the tutorial. We hope that you found that helpful.